Morning, everybody. Happy Wednesday. It's October 14th. Today we're going to go over uses for corn and caponata, which I made and do a video of it because it takes forever to cook, but you'll see. All right, so let me share screen with you. The corn one is pretty neat. Mainly just because there's so many uses for corn and so many different countries use it in different ways. This is just two. Oh, I don't want to share. My bad. This is just two ways of using corn. Well, not two ways, but two different countries. This is how they use it in Mexico. Just some ways, just a couple. And Italy, and then USA. I'm going to just show you some pictures at the end of just basic things. So these ones are pretty cool. This is how they make tortillas. Okay, I want you to watch these. Oh.
Mi nombre es Araí Tlapaltotoli Daniel.
Mi nombre es María Rosalía Tlapaltotoli Daniel.
Mi nombre es Angélica Tlapaltotoli Daniel.
Mi nombre es María del Refugio Tlapaltotoli Daniel.
Mi nombre es Gabriela Sandre y mi secreto para las tortillas es...
El maíz se le agrega al agua con cal, se pone a hervir, ya que lo vemos que ya se pela el maíz, ya está, lo bajo del fuego y listo. Hasta otro día para enjuagarlo y llevarlo a moler.
Darle su tiempo al maíz, llevarlo al molino y ver que la masa salga suave.
So if you guys can't read that, so she lets the corn soak overnight, and then puts it in the grinder.
Que se pueda formar en una bolita para poder hacer las tortillas. Si no pasa esto, en el molino la tortilla no sale buena.
Y pues el hecho de que no les tiene que faltar mucha lumbre porque si no salen crudas y tiesas.
Que salgan muy suaves y sabrosas y ricas.
Ya.
Yo soy Juana Daniel López. Mi secreto es que no se debe de pasar de cocimiento. Yo así me enseñaron. Entonces yo enseño a mis hijas de esa manera.
Se dice aquí que cuando las muchachas tienen 15 años y ya saben hacer tortillas es cuando en el comal, en la lumbre, se está inflando la tortilla, se esponja. Es cuando las muchachas ya están bien preparadas para el cazote.
All right, so that was a quick one. I know it's in Spanish, but you'll be fine. And then the key to them is to press them out flat. It's kind of like pizza dough too. You don't handle it too much. You don't want to overwork it. And then you cook it right on that direct, hot flat top. And if you've never had a fresh tortilla versus like the ones you get at like Kroger, have nothing on a fresh tortilla. Okay, now here's one at like a commercial restaurant. And the blue is just blue corn.
Nixtamalization is the process of making masa. You take dry corn, you cook it with calcium oxide, you let it rest overnight for maybe till 12 hours, and then you rinse it twice to get that excess calcium oxide flavor, and then you grind it through a molino. You mix it with a little bit of water and a little bit of salt, and what comes out of it is masa. To make beautiful masa, you have to start the night before. And every single day we get better. Every single day we figure out what we could have done better the night before and what we could have done better that day. Our main goal, you know, it's obviously the masa, but it's also, we're a restaurant. People go to restaurants to have fun, right? To celebrate, to forget something. And that's also a part of what we're doing here. We're celebrating just being able to share this masa with everybody.
I love that video. How he does that is amazing. And I think, you know, it's like, I worked at Italian restaurants for years, and our thing would be pasta. You know, you've been to Olive Garden. And I worked at a little place downtown, and we would cook, I would say, 1,200 pounds of pasta a week. You know, and just like when I made meatballs for 1 week, we'd make 1,500 meatballs, and we'd make 100 pounds of Italian sausage. And it's just, you just boom, boom, you just keep constantly making that. And then, you know, typically we do 120 quarts of, which would be 30 gallons plus of tomato sauce, you know. So it's a good traditional, you know, recipe. And if you've never had a fresh tortilla, you really need to get out more. Okay, my second favorite thing with making the masa are called sopes, which they're going to show you right here.
Food is my absolute favorite way to explore my heritage. Y sopes son mis favoritos. Hey everyone, I'm Diana and I'm here with my mom.
Hola, yo soy Elvira.
And today we're making Mexican sopes. Mexican sopes are a traditional Mexican recipe. They're basically a handmade tortilla stacked with a bunch of different toppings, and they're really delicious. One of the most amazing things for me is the way in which my mom is able to just kind of fill out all the measurements without actually measuring every single ingredient. For example, when it comes to making the dough, my mom's looking for a certain softness and consistency, and basically when she gets to that elasticity with the dough, she's able to make the sopes.
Cuando estás formando el sope, tienes que hacer la tortilla que todavía esté caliente para que le puedas hacer bien el borde y no se te rompa.
California chilies are not necessarily really spicy, especially when you scoop out all the seeds from inside, but they bring out a really good flavor to the coating of the sope.
Los chiles hay que cocerlos para que estén suaves cuando los mueles.
So when it comes to boiling the tomatoes, you want to look out for the skin of the tomato to start peeling off, and once they're doing that, it's time to turn down the fire and pull them out. The tomato dressing is actually one of the most simple types of dressings that you could make. The simplicity of it allows the tomato flavors to really stand out. Basically, I grew up in Mexico for a few years while I was very young. Even though I live in the US, I am very Mexican. My mom continues to instill in us a lot of the traditions through food or through our culture in general that she grew up with, and to some extent that I grew up with. I'm not the best cook, but my mom is. And so I really like to take tips from her, but also be in the kitchen with her and just kind of like seeing all the crazy things that she does. I really value my heritage. I think that it has taught me so much, not only about food, but about so many other traditions. I like my steak to be cut down to just small square pieces, and that's always how my mom has done it. It just makes it easier to eat. You want to make sure that you allow your sopes to cool off before you dip them in the hot sauce and start frying them, because if you don't let them chill out for at least an hour, the heat will disintegrate the dough. I basically grew up eating sopes and a ton of other classic Mexican recipes. Sopes for sure are one of my all-time favorite. I may be biased, but I think my mom makes the best Mexican sopes ever.
Me gusta la cocina mexicana porque es lo que me enseñó mi mamá y es lo que nos gusta a todos en la casa.
And now the best part about sopes is that you could add as much toppings as you like. Obviously, I like to put as much as possible. Me quedaron muy ricos.
Gracias.
Para los que es un pozole.
Enchiladas.
Oh, yes!
All right, so sopes, you can buy these. I mean, if you want to have a really good one, go to a place that makes them fresh. They sell these things. What's going on here? They sell sopes like pre-made, but I don't suggest those. I mean, if they're not bad, don't get me wrong, but they're a little more chewy. And sometimes things on store shelves, like if you go to like a Mexican grocery store, you're probably safer because they probably move a lot faster. If you go to an American grocery store and they have sopes there, you have no idea how long those have been sitting on the shelf, and they could be kind of stale. So it'd give you a bad impression. But they're so good. It's almost like a little mini pizza, you know, like it's got a nice chewy consistency to it. They're really, really rich flavor. And then whatever toppings you put in there, like chorizo or queso, you know, like I've had them with like chorizo, queso fresco, and, you know, just all kinds of, you know, crema on top, and they're so good. The next thing is I found this. This is how my great grandmother used to serve polenta. And people will hear this and they think it's crazy, but then there's a chef now who does it, and it's like the big trend. But they used to just, here, I'll just let you watch it. It's pretty cool.
That's polenta.
Just like that.
Poured directly on your table. And the celebrity chef behind it turned it into a viral trend. That's Chef Christian Petroni. He's been a recurring judge on Food Network's Chopped and Beat Bobby Flay. For years, people have turned to Food Network for food and drink inspiration. But a Facebook study shows that viewers today focus on the TV screen only 53% of the time. That's likely because 94% of people hold their phones while watching TV. A social video featuring the polenta table has over 2 million views on Facebook.
We used to be able to do this with 48 hours notice, but the demand has gotten so crazy that we've created an email address. It's polentatable@fortinapizza.com.
Chef Petroni wanted to share an old Italian tradition called polenta alla spignatura. That's polenta served right on a table or wood plank, family style. So he started serving the polenta table as an off-the-menu item at Fortina. Polenta is made from corn, and it's kind of like a porridge. Chef Petroni learned about this tradition while on a trip to Italy.
We were in northern Italy years ago. Somehow I got invited to a dinner where polenta was poured on a table, and it inspired me so much. And I just remember everybody being so happy.
Now keep in mind, the polenta table costs $55 per person. It comes with bone marrow, meatballs, wood-fired vegetables, and of course, spicy marinara sauce. But Fortina only serves one polenta per night.
I like my polenta to cook for a couple hours, low and slow. So that's really important. I don't want to mass produce this. We're not rushing these out. We want to do this the right way. So that's why the demand is so high, and we can only do so many at a time.
Chef Petroni won Chopped in 2010, but now food junkies can find him as a judge on the show. And although people aren't watching as much TV as they used to, he says every episode he's on still brings a boost to his business.
These great things like Chopped and being able to compete, being able to judge, only made it better and was able to bring more eyes on what we were doing. And every time an episode of Chopped airs and we get a bunch of hits on our website, it's a good feeling, and we get a bunch of people that come in and see what we're all about. Is there enough cheese? I got the meat sweats.
All right. I think it's amazing that he did that because it's a funny story. My mom is not Italian. She's from Indiana. That's why we're here. My grandparents were from Italy, and then my dad was born here. But she, my great grandmother would do that at a dinner. You'd go to their house, she'd clean off the table, and they had this giant wood board, which my brother has one actually that my dad made, and they would just dump the whole thing of polenta on the table. I mean, they didn't have bone marrow and stuff, but they'd have other things to go with it. Bone marrow, that's kind of a newer thing, and it's a little more expensive now. But they would just dump everything on the table, and my mother's just like, what are you doing? Because she's used to Indiana food where everything's like plop, plop, plop. Here's your scoop of mashed potatoes, here's your green beans, here's your meatloaf. So seeing how traditional Italian people ate was just mind-blowing to her. But I think it's awesome. Like that's how you eat in Boston. That's where my family's from. That's what you eat. That's it. So I thought that was really cool. And polenta is basically kind of like grits. Like all these different countries use the corn, grind it. You can buy polenta in the store. The more coarse, I think, the more better. So it just depends on where you can find it. Okay, so this last part I want to show you is called eggplant. Eggplant caponata. So it's basically, if you've ever had eggplant before, it's very bitter. If you just, say if you took an eggplant, you try to bite into it. The skin of this thing is super thick. It is a type of squash. And then once you bite into it, the flesh of it in the inside, it's almost extremely, like you can squeeze it, it'll spring back and water will come out. The key to polenta, or not polenta, but caponata, is how long you cook it and what you cook it with. And it's, once you make it, it ends up kind of looking like this. I'll show you mine once we get through this in a second. And how I like to serve it, you can put it on a crostini, or bruschetta. Crostini is basically like a slice of Italian bread, and you put oil, maybe butter. Usually it's typically olive oil all over it, salt, pepper, garlic, whatever you want, and then bake them till they're crisp, almost like a cookie, or not a cookie, but a cracker consistency. And what you need is to make sure you go heavy with the olive oil. So it soaks in there, so it's almost like soggy, but when you bake it, it firms up and makes it crispy, and all the water, any water evaporates out, but it actually it gives the bread this crumbly, delicious texture. And then you put the caponata on top, Parmesan, whatever you want. The other way is I put on eggs, eggs, toast, the chicken in a window, whatever you call it, like the toast with an egg fried in it, and then put the caponata on top. There's several different ways. You can serve it on top of chicken. You can serve it on top of fish. It's just really, really good. It's like a very sweet, because once that skin starts to cook, the purple skin, it breaks down and just loses all bitterness and just comes out extremely, extremely sweet. All right, so I'm gonna show you my pictures, wherever they went. Hold on, let me move this. Oh, here we go. All right. So just to start out, the first thing I start doing is, hope you guys can see this. Let me expand this a little bit. So you see I got here, I put a little bit of red pepper, onions, celery, and then here's the eggplant, okay? I just want to show you guys what this looks like. These are all different things I got in this Piazza Produce box. So I was like, let's go ahead and make caponata because everything's here. So this is just a standard eggplant. There's another one called a Japanese eggplant that's like a lot lighter purple and a lot skinnier. It almost looks like a long cucumber. You see the seeds, and this is very spongy. One thing you could do is if you do like an eggplant Parmesan, you want to slice this. It will brown on you real quick. Well, not real quick, but if you leave it out too long, you want to salt this. And what that does is suck out some of this moisture, because this thing is just like a sponge. So I don't salt it in this one, but if you're doing it, we'll do that another time. Okay, so here's the eggplant diced up. You want to be uniform with this. See the pieces over here? I slice these like planks and then cut into little cubes. And then after the onions and the mirepoix cooks, I start adding the eggplant. And I go heavy, heavy, heavy on olive oil. There's probably at least a quarter to half a cup of olive oil in this pot. And the reason is for that, because this eggplant will start soaking it up. And you need to get your heat medium high. And literally you're gonna saute this, just start sweating this down. And keep sweating it. A lot of people they jump the gun and they'll say, oh, here's my list of ingredients. And they just dump everything in a pot and it turns out absolutely horrendous. What I do is you have to cook this. You want to cook all this water out. You want to evaporate that, okay? And you'll see in here, the pieces of eggplant are starting to get translucent. See right here? Oh, wow, that's amazing. Right here, see how this piece is not done yet, but this is starting to get translucent, which means it's getting clear. That means it's getting cooked. So it's getting the water cooked out of it. Okay, next picture, it's cooking down even more. You guys see how it's all getting that? And if you look at this pot, that's the same amount, okay? Remember before it was way up here? That's how much water is cooking out of this because it's cooking down. All right, next thing that goes in, these are called capers. These are the unbudded flower of our Mediterranean bush that they pluck off, they sun dry it, and they pack it in like a vinegar salt solution. They're very, very potent flavor-wise, but they have a very delicious flavor. They're great for caponata. A lot of Italian dishes have this in there. Caponata, puttanesca, which is like a sweet, another type of sweet Italian sauce. You can add black olives to this. You can add whatever you want. But I use capers. I put in 1 can of diced red tomatoes. If you can find San Marzano tomatoes, those are the best ones. But if you can't, just use these. And that's once everything's cooked down. You do not add these until everything's cooked down like I showed you. Next picture, red wine vinegar. I do about 3 tablespoons of vinegar. People, if you've never cooked with vinegar, it actually turns very sweet, and then it helps promote. If you have a bitter ingredient, you add vinegar to it, it counterbalances it. Okay, so you're way over here on bitterness, you're way over here on sour. They meet right in the middle. And it's a tasting thing. So you add a couple tablespoons, you stir it in, you cook it, you taste it, okay? There's me adding it. But you see how much this is cooked down? See that? You can see the bottom of the pan, and that's 2 whole eggplant. So that's how much moisture is in those things. And you can start to see how this color of the skin is turning a little more light colored purple. That's what you're looking for. Where am I at? Oh, okay. All right, so this is a little watery now because you just added a whole can of diced tomatoes and juice. The only thing that's in diced tomatoes and juice is they go ahead and peel them. They keep all the natural juices in there and they put ascorbic acid in it just to keep them from turning. And that's what it'll look like. You want to stir this up and then you just keep cooking this. This is about after, I would say, an hour and a half. You see how thick this has gotten? It's all married together. And then this is when you want to season. Well, you can season throughout, but is that the last picture? Yeah. Okay, so that's how it's cooked, okay? It's a long process, you know, from start to finish, just cutting these down. Like this is 1 of those eggplant. I had 2, so you got to imagine that's a lot of eggplant. And if you have a volume of like this much vegetables, it cooks down so much because these things, I would guess, are 70% at least of moisture, depending on what vegetable it is. So once you cook them down, there's not much left, but it's such a rich sauce. And if you try doing this not step by step, it does not turn out good. Another thing is I usually use oregano, little basil, and bay leaf. Bay leaf is like my best herb. A lot of people, you know, they might have a thing of bay leaves in their cabinet for 100 years and they don't taste like anything anymore. I go through bay leaves about a jar every 3 months because I put it in soups, stocks, this sauce, marinara, it just has its own special flavor, and you really don't know that flavor until you actually use it. I mean, and sometimes if you have herbs that have been in your pantry for years, throw them away because they're bad after about 6 months, and they just lose their flavor. So, all right, so that is caponata. Sorry, I need to move this. The one last thing I want to show you was just some different ideas with corn. I know this is just a Google search, but you know, it's so versatile, and Indiana has some of the best sweet corn in the world, in my opinion, as long as you get it fresh. Do not buy, if you buy sweet corn at the store, there's nothing wrong with that. Do not shuck it there. You don't shuck corn until you're about to use it because it'll start to lose its flavor. That's what I've been told by farmers. But if around here, the end of summer, start driving around outside of the city, and there'll be farms that just have fresh sweet corn on the side of the road, and it's cheap. The corn you do see in Indiana, like when you see fields and fields of corn, that is not sweet corn. There might be one little patch of sweet corn, but the thousands and thousands of acres of corn is feed corn. That's what's sold internationally. That's what they use for animal feed, typically. But, you know, grilled corn with cheese. Mine is fried corn, you know, like take this right here. That is very nice looking. That's a summer corn salad. You can eat corn on the cob cold, like not corn on the cob, but you can cook this, like this is grilled and then serve cold, maybe serve warm. You can cook this or cut it off the cob, and I've used it before in salsa where I just cut it straight off and mix it with tomatoes, onions, whatever you want, and eat it like that. It's very delicious, cooked or raw. It's so sweet, and it's actually juicy. Like if you get it fresh, it'll be so juicy that it like, you're like, oh my gosh, like it literally fills your mouth with water, of sweet corn water. Here's some other ones, you know, just different ways to fry it. Creamed corn, that's huge. Creamed corn is absolutely delicious. Corn chowder. Let's look at this one. I did a corn chowder you guys saw, and this is kind of similar. This has potatoes in it, but very simple, and you don't do a lot. You basically fry the corn, put your bacon in there, heavy cream, potatoes, and you could par cook the potatoes so they're already soft, and you just add these things together and kind of marry the flavors and adjust it with seasoning. Like salt is your friend when you're cooking, because salt, going too salty, it just tastes like salt, but adding salt gradually and learning how to flavor things, it brings out the natural flavors of each item. Grilled corn, you know, using corn and pozole, using hominy, which is like a grit. This one I thought was really corn fritters. So doing like a cornbread, like a cornmeal or like a corn batter, and then you can fry them or grill them. It's just endless. Yeah, there's just tons of stuff on here. Yeah, this cream corn is kind of like a bake. I've had corns that are like this. My sister-in-law does one of these, that it's like this baked corn casserole type thing with cheese on top of it. It's absolutely amazing. But yeah, there's lots of things to use your corn for. And it's not just, I mean, tortillas and stuff are absolutely great. But you can also use them for things like this, you know, make chowder, stews. It's one of those things, once it's in season, just buy a ton of it. You know, that's what I do. So yeah, at the end of the season, I'll buy like 10 ears of corn, cut it all off the cob. I save the husk if you want to make tamales. And I save the corn and freeze it because it freezes really nice. And then I save the cobs and I make corn stock with it because you can make awesome soups with it. So that's your wonderful lecture for today. Have a great day, and yeah, that's it.